It's a postbiotic.
Postbiotic, yeah, you said that. I don't even know what that is. You're like way above my pay grade here, Chris. Hello, everyone. I'm Morgan, co-founder of Primal Kitchen and host of the Primal Kitchen podcast. Today, I'm talking to renowned scientist, co-founder, and CEO of Timeline, Dr. Chris Rinsch. For more than 2 decades, Chris has been an innovator in the life sciences arena and developed Timeline in 2007. Timeline is a health science company that develops biotechnology to improve mitochondrial health, muscle strength, and endurance in humans. Today, Chris is going to be talking about the company's proprietary technology, Mitopure, and the future of health sciences. Before we get started, a brief reminder that any and all opinions and views shared by hosts and guests in this podcast are the speaker's own and do not represent the view of Primal Kitchen or its affiliates or parent company. Hello, Chris. How are you?
Hi, Morgan. Doing great. How are you doing?
I'm good. It's great to connect. I'm super excited to have you here, educate us on all the things. And you are, where in the world are you?
I'm in Switzerland right now. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's great. So what time is it there? Is it the evening?
Oh, it's around 6:40.
I love it. Okay. Well, thanks for joining us so late. You're probably ready for dinner, but we're pumped to learn more. So you got to give us a little lowdown, like what is mitochondrial health, cellular health? Why should the listeners care?
Sure. Well, let's start with mitochondria. And what are mitochondria? They're basically the batteries inside of all of our cells. And what they do is they create the energy that is responsible for all of the and that is needed for all the biochemical reactions inside of your cells and basically for your cells to function. So all of your cells, with the exception of your red blood cells, contain mitochondria. And these mitochondria are constantly producing ATP or energy as we walk, as we breathe, as we sleep. And that's essential to keep the cells functioning well, and not only the cells functioning well, your organs that are comprised of your cells, and then consequently your entire body in keeping that functioning optimally.
I love it. Okay. And so what other, how does that play out in the day-to-day life of someone? What would they notice if they had unhealthy mitochondria, or what would they notice if they had healthy mitochondria?
Well, I mean, as I was saying, mitochondria are really these these batteries inside of our cells. And so you feel the energy. So not only would your cells have a decline in energy if the mitochondria weren't functioning better, you would feel it. You would feel less energy. And when you see better mitochondrial function, you see better performance in general, better, it's been attributed to better muscle performance. For example, we spend a lot of time here at Timeline looking at muscle performance, specifically when we try to act to improve mitochondrial function.
Cool. And so can you measure this? Can you measure mitochondrial health?
Sure. So in humans, you can measure it in a number of ways. You can take a look at the actual cells. So you can take what they call a biopsy, or a sample of your cells, by taking a little piece of the cells from or tissue from your muscle. So, for example, your leg muscle, you can take a little measurement of your mitochondrial function inside of the tissues of your leg by looking at gene expression profiles. So that's something that we've done in clinical studies. We looked at the gene expression profiles in the tissue before and after treatments with our product, Mitopure.
Cool. And what'd you find?
And well, we see that after a month of taking Mitopure, you're seeing an improvement in the mitochondrial function. And we can talk a little bit about how you can modulate mitochondrial function or improve mitochondrial function. So essentially, what we've been concerned with is how do you keep your mitochondria function from declining? And so if you have a declined mitochondrial function, how do you increase it? And so normally in all of your cells, your mitochondria have this normal life cycle. So as they're producing energy, they actually create these reactive oxygen species that can then attack the mitochondria and basically damage them. And so our cells have this process inside of them that allow the cells to basically recycle the damaged mitochondria. And when you recycle the damaged mitochondria, that clears away space to make new mitochondria, and basically the recycled components are then reconstituted into the healthy mitochondria, and so you have a better cellular function, better mitochondrial pool inside of your cells, and then consequently your tissues function better.
I love it. And how's this related to aging? Is this something that like declines with age and this can offset some of those declines, or how does this all play out?
Sure. I mean, Morgan, as we're getting older, what happens is that our mitochondria function declines, and it's really linked to our activity, our diet, general lifestyle. And so it's been shown that people who, as they get older, having more trouble getting around and walking, and you can call these people pre-frail or even frail, where they have difficulty getting out of the chair, and they tend to have a lower mitochondrial function. In fact, we did a study, one of our first clinical studies that was non-interventional, was one where we looked at people who were 65 and older, and we compared those people who were very active and sort of running or cycling every day versus those people who were having trouble walking around and were considered pre-frail. And we looked at the functionality of the mitochondria in the muscle tissue and the skeletal muscle tissue, and we saw a big drop in terms of the gene expression and overall functionality of the mitochondria and these pre-frail people versus those people who were active all of the time.
Interesting. And so MitoPure can replace some of that maybe isn't being achieved by lifestyle, or is just happening as a result of natural anti-aging.
Yeah. So I mean, if we now talking about MitoPure, and I'll get into that. It's a food ingredient that is actually acting on this pathway of stimulating this recycling of your mitochondria, and so it kind of boosts the natural recycling, this mitophagy, and consequently you can restore the mitochondria function to their to an optimal level.
Wow. And so you're seeing impressive results in just 30 days. Do you guys have like longer term studies, or how long have you been studying the effects on mitochondria?
Well, Morgan, we've done a number of clinical studies, and the first one was 30 days. We then decided, and we were looking just at the expression in muscle tissue. But then we moved on to looking at physiological effects, and we started treating people for as long as 4 months. And so we've run a couple of studies now treating people for 4 months long, and we saw after 4 months in individuals who are 40 to 65 years old and more sedentary lifestyle, we saw an improvement in their leg muscle strength by 10 to 12% after 4 months. And we also saw the same type of benefits on the mitochondria function. We take a look at, there's a couple of things we do. In addition to looking at the biopsies, we also take blood samples, and we look at for metabolites that are changing with time. And one of those is acyl-carnitin, and the acyl-carnitin levels were shown to decrease as you in those people taking MitoPure, and so that was something very interesting to see, because the combination of seeing something locally at the muscle level, but in the plasma systemically, this gives you an indication that there's a more of a systemic impact on the mitochondria, and it's not just localized to muscle, but you should see it elsewhere. And so that's causing us to now explore in other studies outside of just the muscle tissue, but continuing to think about the impact on muscle tissue. We ran a second study in older individuals who were 65 and older, and who were showing some issues with walking at the onset. So they were screened by having a lower endurance. And what we showed was that basically after taking MitoPure for 2 months, we showed an improvement in the in muscle and muscle endurance in both the hand muscle and in the leg muscle.
Crazy. So cool. And so there's benefits though if you're not, like, you've done a lot of, it sounds like a lot of this research is on like older individuals, but what about like if you're, I guess you said 40 to 60, but what if you're not like pre-frail?
Well, that's it's an interesting question. We haven't we're currently running some studies in a younger population and athletes, but I would say that we now have well over 15,000 people who are taking our product, and we get a lot of feedback from people, and this sort of spans the whole age gamut from 20s all the way to the 80s. And what we've seen in athletes, for example, we had a number of athletes who started taking our product, and they seem to feel the benefits there.
Cool. I love it. And how did you get into this? Like, this is like such a big problem to tackle, I feel like. So I'm just so curious how you stumbled on this revelation.
Well, when we started, the idea was to really explore functional foods. When we're thinking about aging in general and this idea of keeping ourselves functioning at our optimal, and we were thinking about also the diseases that are associated with aging. So that was sort of one of the fundamental starting points, because the company was created by people who were scientists, myself, and thinking about pharmaceutical products, coming from that background, and most of the diseases that are associated with aging are slow degenerative diseases, and you really realize that you have them when it's too late. And so the thought was, can we interact earlier and smarter with nutritional products and making a functional food so people could take that into their own hands and try and manage their health in a smarter way with nutrition that was clinically studied. Now, we're not targeting diseases with nutrition, but trying to kind of manage your health as you get older and keep yourself at your peak throughout your life. And so that was sort of how that started. And we began looking at a number of different natural products. So the idea was to really look at the different different compounds that are found in natural products, and to see which natural products might be more appropriate to improve our health, and which might have compounds or extracts that could offer some real health benefits. And so after looking at a few, we started focusing in on the pomegranate, and this was very interesting. We started doing things like developing pomegranate extracts. And then, we were, bringing in pomegranates, we're juicing them, doing extractions, measuring what was inside of the extracts, and then sort of testing those in various preclinical models to see, did they have any effects? And as that, exploration continued, we started thinking about not only the compounds inside of the pomegranate, and one of the most predominant compounds in a family of compounds is called the elagitannins, and they're sort of complex structures. And one of those in the pomegranate is called puny collagen. And so we started looking at puny collagen, and then we realized that inside of the intestine, there's basically the puny collagen is digested and then converted by the gut microflora, all the little bugs you have in your intestine, into a compound called urolithin A. And so this urolithin A is really a postbiotic, and at the time it was thought that this was a way of the body's way of basically clearing out these elagitannins that you are consuming, from your diet, and just eliminating them from the body. But in fact, we took a look at those compounds, and we said, well, maybe there's some bioactivity there. And so what we did is we started studying them, looking at them and in worms actually in the very beginning. So, and we're doing this together with a professor here at the EPFL who's renowned in mitochondria biology, Professor Johan Owerks. And what we saw there in his lab was that by giving these small worms urolithin A, they were able to boost their longevity and their lifespan by 45 to 50%. And so that was, super remarkable. And, this is something that that Professor Ulrichs hadn't seen before. And so we started exploring that further, and we were looking at you can also look at muscle function in worms by looking at how they move as they get older. And so we saw this improvement there, a whole body improvement at the organism level of the worms by this sort of longevity, but also this whole concept that there was an improved movement of the worms. And then we decided to go to that next level and explore, the impact in mice. And this was an interesting study where we started out looking at mice and treating them for quite some time, several months. And we were looking at mice that were metabolically challenged, and so they were fed.
So like fat mice? Were they fat mice?
Yeah, basically, we gave them sort of the supersized diet to give them a little bit of a metabolic challenge, and then we gave some urolithin A, and others we didn't give urolithin A, and what we saw after a number of months, we went and we were looking at their activity, and we put them into these. They're kind of like the hamster wheels, equivalent for a mouse, and what we saw was that they were running about 50% longer and 50% further when they were taking urolithin A than when they weren't, and we were also seeing an improvement in their muscle strength. And so this was sort of a seminal moment for us, where we realized that it was having a very important impact, not only on the mitochondria, but also on the muscle function and the physiological function. And then we decided to start looking at older mice, so ones that are close to the end of their lives, approaching like 18 to 20 months of age, and then treating them for shorter periods of time to see if the impact could happen quicker. And sure enough, we saw after a couple of months in older mice, we also saw an improvement in the muscle function. And so this was really, obviously really exciting. And so it caused us to start thinking about the whole translation into the clinical studies that I mentioned earlier, and the development of urolithin A into MitoPure, which is the branded ingredient that's in our products.
I love it. And then, so it does come from pomegranates. Then the ingredients derived from pomegranates.
Yeah. So it's not extracted from pomegranates. In fact, you can't find any urolithin A inside of a pomegranate. You have the elagitannins that are inside of the pomegranate, and so what we do is we synthesize urolithin A at a very high purity and molecular identical manner to the urolithin A that our body creates. So when you eat foods that and you get urolithin A naturally from the foods that you eat, you need to have the right gut microbiota, and the urolithin A is created by the body. It's not.
Okay, so it's almost like a reaction after you eat something.
Yeah, it's a postbiotic.
Postbiotic, yeah, you said that. I don't even know what that is. You're like way above my pay grade here, Chris. Like, tell me more.
So Morgan, postbiotics are really the product of the inputs into your body and that are acted on by the gut microflora inside of your intestine. Yeah. So when you have postbiotic in the case of urolithin A, before it becomes that postbiotic, you have your punicalagin that comes in and then is transformed by that gut microflora into urolithin A.
Got it. And so if I take MitoPure, do I need my body will, I don't need anything. I don't need to do it. Like, it's not dependent on my own gut health, right? Like, it's going to be effective regardless. You guys have
No, it will be
synthesized.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. So you circumvent all of the issues of not having the right gut microflora.
Got it.
Which is really important, because we want to make sure that if we were going to give pomegranate extract, for example, then you wouldn't be guaranteed to get any exposure to urolithin A. But by giving urolithin A specifically at precise doses, we can ensure that you get an adequate level of urolithin A actually into your bloodstream, and then that can hit the targets that it needs to stimulate this mitophagy process inside of our cells.
Interesting. Okay, so talk to me about longevity. So, I mean, I'm sure it's hard to measure at this point because you haven't had people on it for decades that you can see if there's any but you guys are kind of playing in this whole life extension place, if you will.
Well, longevity, the way I think of longevity, it's more about health span rather than lifespan. And so
I like it.
Health span meaning that, as you're getting older, what you want to do, what we all would love to do, is live the best possible life at each moment in our lives. Yeah. And that's really the definition of health span. So if you can keep your body functioning optimally as you get older, you're going to have a really great health span. What you don't want to do is live for a long time and not be very healthy. Yeah. And so by improving the mitochondrial function inside of your cells, you actually improve the metabolic function of all of your cells, and then your organ function, and then consequently your whole body function and your skeleton. Basically, I think one thing that's important to think about is that when we're trying to supplement our bodies, I mean, I think a lot of us take different dietary supplements to complement our diet. And when you supplement your diet, many people think, well, what do I need to add, together to have that ideal supplementation, or what is the most important vitamin or mineral I should start with? And the way I think about it is that, what you really want is the mitochondria functioning optimally first, and because it's producing the energy inside of your cells, and then you can start, supplementing with other type of vitamins and minerals that are also important in the biochemical reactions inside of our cells.
So in a sense, if your cells aren't even healthy, if you don't have optimal mitochondria, you could be wasting money on other supplements because you can't even utilize them, or not so much.
Well, essentially, energy is the most important thing for your cells, and for cellular reactions. And so you really want to be able to have to maximally benefit from all of the different vitamins and mineral supplements that you might be giving. You want to have your cells from an energetic standpoint optimal.
Awesome. Okay, so anecdotally, say a science aside, what are people saying when they've been on your product for a while?
We've had a number of I can give a number of different things here. We've heard about I can talk about energy levels in general. I stopped taking coffee a couple of years ago after switching to MitoPure, and I haven't felt the need for coffee. And so, and I've heard this from several people that we've met, that it sort of it boosts your general overall energy levels. But in terms of sports and performance, we've heard recovery stories from people who are basically recovering from after exercise, that they're able, that somehow they feel like they're recovering much faster following some exercise. But we haven't tested that clinically yet. We're in the process of doing that. And when we have, there's a lot of stories of athletes saying that they were, once in the middle of the peloton, and now they're at the front of the peloton when they're riding with their friends. And yeah, I mean, there's been a number. I know people who have said that they've had issues with pains or cramps in their leg muscles before, and they started taking our product, and those pains or cramps have gone away. But these are anecdotal, and
yeah. And I mean, you don't even need anecdotal because you guys have done so much research. I mean, you've done, compared to like other supplement companies, the amount of research you guys have done on this ingredient is like, it's tremendous.
Yeah, I mean, we've run now, a number of clinical studies. We have 4 clinical studies completed. 3 of those have been published in very high peer-reviewed journals, all talking about mitochondrial function and muscle function in adults and healthy adults. And we have a number of other studies going on. And in fact, one of the things that was interesting is that we're starting to look beyond just muscle function. Muscle function was sort of an entry point for us. And now we're looking also at mitochondrial function in the immune cells. And so this is something very interesting because there's this whole idea of immune aging, and immune aging happens when that mitochondrial function declines. And so
what is immune aging? What does that mean?
Well, it basically means that the immune cells aren't stem-like, and they can't react to infections or challenges like cancer as well as they could when they were younger and they weren't aged. And so
got it. So it's like what we were seeing during COVID, when it was like, oh, if you're older, you're kind of screwed. Like, just, yeah.
Well, and it's a good point that older people often can't react to vaccines, for example, because they can't mount an
immune response. Okay, interesting.
Immune response. And so what we'll be looking at in the 2 studies is, in one of the studies that's kicking off is really looking at a characterization of the effects of MitoPure on immune cells and on the mitochondrial function of immune cells. And in the second study that we're conducting here in Switzerland, we'll be looking at people post cancer treatment, and we'll be looking at sort of the evolution of their immune cells post cancer treatment as we try to improve the quality of their immune cells.
Wow, interesting. Very cool. Okay, you guys have launched a skincare line, so tell me about that.
Indeed. So, MitoPure and mitochondria aren't only good for taking orally, but for our skins, you also have lots of mitochondria throughout your skin cells. And the interesting thing is that we've observed is that when you take, at least when we're looking in vitro, we see the same type of impact on skin cells that we see on muscle cells in vitro, and that is this improving of the mitochondrial function. And so we've developed creams that you can apply that will, and we've run a couple of 3 clinical studies this last year looking at the effect of MitoPure on the skin, topically on the face, in fact, and on the back and various parts. And what we see is that we see an improvement in terms of wrinkles after just a few weeks, and so that's something that's
after just a few weeks.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So what's fascinating is that, we're really looking at these 2 pathways. It's the intrinsic and the extrinsic aspects of skin aging. And the extrinsic skin aging is when you have aging that's caused by UV light and pollution, whereas the intrinsic skin aging is caused by just the natural aging of the skin and the decline in mitochondrial function and decline in collagen levels. And what we're seeing is, and both are very important. In fact, the extrinsic aging might be even more important than the intrinsic aging, because we're so often out under the sun and getting exposed to UV light and pollution. But what we've seen,
when you say more important, you mean more important for like wrinkle treatment?
Well, that it may be
More effective?
well, having the extrinsic effects on the aging are more dramatic. If, so, for example, if you're out in the sun more often,
Got it. Okay.
that's going to impact you more than just the natural aging.
I see.
But the
Okay.
combination together cause a problem there. I mean, it's sort of synergistic in a bad way.
Yeah.
But what we've seen is through our clinical studies, we've seen that we can improve the wrinkles on the sort of this in general. So from more of a cosmetic or appearance perspective, but we've also done biopsies, and we've been able to show that we're able to improve things like, and we see a change in collagen there, and the different gene expression linked to collagen degradation. So a decline in this, and also from this extrinsic aging that we were talking about, what we see is that following UV exposure, when we treat with our creams, that we are able to reduce the inflammation of the skin. So we see this effect against UV insults as well.
Wow. That's crazy. And so do you think it just works while you're using it, or do you think it's like actually causing changes to the skin?
I think it's working as you apply it you need to apply it every day, of course, like every skin cream. And and so it acts. It takes a certain number of weeks before you start to see the actual visual effects, and those improve with time.
Cool. Yeah. I mean, it's so, side note, I did receive some of this skin cream for those listening, and it's really nice. It has like a really nice scent. It goes on well. It's good. And you guys formulated without any the phthalates or whatever those nasty things
Well,
are
it's
called.
very, it's a very green and clean formulation.
Yeah. Cool. So is there anybody doing anything else on mitochondrial health that even comes close to what you guys are working on? Or what are you seeing in the marketplace?
I think that there's no one else acting on mitochondria that stimulates this pathway of mitophagy today. And, in terms of the clinical studies that have been done, I think we're really setting a new standard. And in terms of, developing products and testing them at the level that even pharmaceutical companies might test their products. So we're really trying to set the bar high. And in terms of other products out there, touching on mitochondria function, there are a few out there, but not hitting this pathway, which is so key to maintaining mitochondria function, and just in the mitochondria in general, the pool in an optimal state.
Very cool. I love it. And how long have you been at this? You've been working on this for quite some time, haven't you?
Yeah, we've been doing this research for over 10 years now, Morgan. It's been biology takes time, and clinical trials take time. You want to make sure that the data is right. Before you go into humans, you want to test that in a number of preclinical models where you can confirm that the data and the science is perfect. And this, as I said, this has been published in a lot of really high impactful scientific journals out there, and they require a lot of experimentation to get into them.
Yeah. Awesome. So cool. So aside from MitoPure, because I'm pretty excited about it, as you know, personally, but aside from MitoPure, what are you most excited about? What are you seeing in the space? Or what else are you excited about in health and wellness these days? Anything fun we should have on our radars?
Well, I think that the whole longevity space is a very interesting one. And there's been, not only the different foods that you take and the supplements that you take, there starts to be more devices that people are looking at, and even dietary regimens. This intermittent fasting is becoming very popular, and that can be which and intermittent fasting and fasting in general is something that leads to this whole process of mitophagy as well, and that and sports and being athletic that can naturally stimulate the process of mitophagy. So, this idea of combining, the supplements that you take with the different lifestyle changes, like the intermittent fasting and other types of sports that you might be doing. It's this combination that I think is going to be trending as we continue and in this whole longevity space. I think this will be something that we should keep an eye on.
I love it. What does your diet look like these days? I mean, I gather you're pretty committed to this whole health and wellness thing, huh? Personally.
Yes, I'm very committed.
You grew up in California, right? You're a West Coast nuts and berries guy by birth, yes?
Of course.
Yeah.
No.
And you're in Switzerland. I mean, I feel like Switzerland just has a good, healthy aura about it. I could be wrong, but
it does. It's Mediterranean diet is pretty standard over here, so
yeah,
we get used to that.
Yeah, I love it. Okay, what's the worst thing you've ever done for your own health, Chris?
I think perhaps those desserts that we take from time to time that can that might qualify.
That'll get you. I like it. Okay, so this is good. You're pretty pure. I get some pretty crazy responses on that one. Okay, let's see. What is biggest failure or biggest success entrepreneurially in the last, I don't know, and I guess in your career in general?
Oh, I think the biggest success has to be what we're doing now with MitoPure. I think that I think perhaps if we talk about failure, maybe if we could have done it a lot quicker and discovered this a lot sooner, but I think this has been a pretty great success story, and thanks to a great group of people here at at Timeline. I mean, this couldn't have been done without a fantastic team of scientists and our excellent chief medical officer and all of the marketing people involved.
Very cool. Okay, this is my last question. I ask everyone this, so you can tell me, but what's something most people don't know about you? This is the drum roll question that you were nervous for, not really, before we started. So just, could be anything. Something most people don't know about you.
Living here in Switzerland for a while, a lot of people think that don't realize that I'm originally from California. So that's probably, I would say, for people here in Switzerland, and those people when I'm over in the U.S., they probably don't realize that I'm.
When we met, I thought you were Swiss. I didn't. When we chatted prior, I did not know you were from California either. So that's a good one. I was like telling you, like, oh, us Americans. Then I'm like, oh wait, you were. I'm so ignorant.
You have a very European last name too.
Very German. Well, now it's Italian, Zanotti, but my maiden name was Bueller, which is very German. But yeah, I love
Swiss
it.
German.
Is it Bueller?
Yeah,
Swiss German? Yeah.
Yeah,
and my name, Guten Morgen, is good morning in German too. So, but yes, but American through and through. Well, awesome. It was so great to meet you. I love what you guys are doing at Timeline. Can you give the audience just a little nudge on where they can find you guys if they want to try your products?
Sure. You guys can find us at timelinenutrition.com, and it's easy to find us. And I guess we'll probably put a link somewhere.
We will. We will put a link somewhere, and we'll send you out in the interwebs to the Primal Kitchen folks. Thank you so much, Chris. It was great chatting.
Thanks so much, Morgan, for having me today. This is great.